So your landscape is changing. The job that you have is changing. And where it goes is really up to you. It's really up to you. But the thing we would really like to do is have, by the time we leave here on Sunday morning, or Sunday noontime, we'd like to have you all bond together enough in a network so that when you start getting ideas, you could share them at least among yourselves, and be able to use that to say, hey, we just figured out a way to do the yada, 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 whatever, and I want to openly share that idea. And so that way we can start to use this group of people that's collective to be able to put together new ideas, new approaches, and to try to stay ahead of the stuff that's going on, and attract the younger members that every flotilla commander will sit there all day long and say, I need younger members. Well, fine. You need younger members? How about you send them mail, through the mail? Why don't you ignore the fact that there's social media and ignore the fact that there's email, and make them use old coding techniques for websites? That's a really good way to keep them around for 5 minutes. They'll be gone. We put the IT group together in part because we knew that we had to make these changes to the way we were doing business to provide support to you. We are a service organization. We set some standards for you, but we're a service organization. And the IT group, we looked at where an organization has the auxiliary of 30,000 people, you would expect, and in many cases, our IT group in the past has operated as if it was a large legacy type IT organization with 35 or 40 people. So we looked at that and said, we have to find a way to operate more effectively. And one of the things we did is we talked, with Steve's guidance, we looked to Silicon Valley. How do startup companies work? How do small organizations, high-performance organizations in this day and age function? So we did some things in our organization that reflect that. We split it into 2 departments. We shifted some divisions around within the departments. We actually pared down the number of divisions we had in the old I department. And so the engineers and the hosting people are a part of the engineering group. User services and the other 3 divisions that I talked about are part of the user services department that's part of the IT group. And by paring it down, we also did some things to say we need to kind of flatten out the bureaucracy. We have too many situations, even in a small department, where you have people that it felt like they needed to go through some kind of chain up over the top of the transom to talk to each other, which is crazy. In this day and age, when I can send you an email, I can send an email to anybody in the country and get a response, and electronically break down all those barriers. So organizationally, we wanted to do the same thing, and we've done it. We eliminated our deputies. What do we need deputies for when you have 30 people? We're using our division chiefs to effectively be those deputies because they have centers of expertise. They're centers of excellence that each one of them have a responsibility for. So we broke all that down. And we told people that we publish an org chart only for your benefit, so you know who to call. We don't operate on an org chart inside the departments. If we need to talk to somebody, I'm 2 levels theoretically away from where Steve is. I'll talk to Steve, I'll talk to Dale, I'll talk to any of Dale's people. Now that I know Amy, I'm going to talk to her. I talked to her before, but I'll talk to her some more now. And if I got a question, I'm going to go ask the question. And we operate as a small organization, as a small startup organization. And it's exciting to see the results that are popping out. We talk about stuff that we've been developing and things that are coming out and how quickly we're turning things around. Our approach to projects is completely different. Any project that we do, if we can't do it in 100 days, it's too big a project. So we either have 2 projects or 2 pieces of a project, or we use iterative development, where we develop a little thin slice and then more and then more and then more. But we get results in the field inside 100 days. Closer to 90 days is the idea. So we're really trying to run this as a high-performance organization. We need you all to interface with us and work with us to be able to make that happen. And the way that will work is for you to help tell us how we can make your job easier. That's what we're here for. That's what we exist for. The one other thing that we did, and Steve, I introduced Steve as a senior fellow. Those of you that worked in technology for a long time know that, or any kind of firm when you got highly specialized people, as you know, the tendency in an organization is take your very best technical people and promote them into management positions, and so you usually gain a bad manager and lose a good technician. And while that was not the case with the people that we had, we needed to be able to recognize and attract senior talent and have them come in. So we created this position called Senior Fellow, which is the best of the best. As you can see, Steve wears 4 stripes, just like a department director. Our Senior Fellows deserve that recognition. These are the guys that carry the load for us. We have 3 of them: Bill Pritchard, Steve, and Alex Portman. We expect we'll have more. And then we've got the regular staff that is at kind of the middle level, that would have been the equivalent of a branch chief before. And then Steve's going to talk on Sunday about the adjunct program and why you care about that and how you're really going to help us. So that's why you came to St. Louis, to help us. So that's what we're here to help you. So that's, in a nutshell. I've chewed through too much of Steve's time. He hadn't thrown anything at me quite yet, but I think I'm ready. Is there anything you thought I wanted to cover that I didn't cover?
No, and during the weekend, we'll just come up with it spontaneously.
Okay.
If we need to.
So I'm going to be in and out. I'm going to be kind of tied up tomorrow because I got to sit there in that meeting most of the day. But I will be popping in and out, and you'll see me around. And if you have a question, you can't get the answer, or if you got an idea, I'm not going to tell you my email address. I'm going to tell you to find me an aux officer. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you. Resisted the impulse to clap.
Yeah.
I can see the hands going up. So welcome, everybody. A show of hands, who in here has ever worked as a software engineer? Okay. Tonight I'm going to talk to you first about the WOW program, Websites Without Webmasters. Before I do that, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself so you know where it's coming from. I'm relatively new to the auxiliary. I joined in June of 2008. I live in District 11 North. I've crewed for Roger, but I actually belong to 11 South. I have over 950 trips on Southwest Airlines between San Francisco and Los Angeles because I commute twice a week. And when I joined the auxiliary, I swore, and I told my wife, and I promised that I would never write a single line of code. Okay? And so far, I've written about 250,000 lines of code. So I didn't have anything to do with WOW, but I'd like to tell you about it tonight. Some of you may have seen it, played with it, but I'm going to give you the real WOW pitch. Bruce talked about the fact that you're going to get trained here, but I would rather like to characterize it as you're going to get informed here. It doesn't matter if you don't need to take notes from this. Every one of you is going to get a copy of this presentation. My number one goal tonight is that you can take this presentation and give it to your SOs and your FSOs around the district, okay? So I want you to remember what I say and how I deliver this, because it's going to become your presentation. We'll give you the source code for it. You can switch out the names to protect the innocent and so forth. So WOW means Websites Without Webmasters. When I saw that, I was kind of offended by that. I said, well, that doesn't really work right. You know, we're picking out that O in the middle. And being the geek that I am, I actually spent an hour one day on the internet searching through, seeing if I could find a language on Earth where this acronym worked, and I found that it works in German. Websites Without Webmasters in German. And so the unfortunate part of my discovering this is the rest of the presentation tonight is going to be in German. But seriously, what you're going to hear today, I'm going to start with a little bit of God and motherhood and talk about our brand identity goals for websites. This has probably been beaten into you, but it's an opportunity just to make a few points. Then I'm going to talk about content-driven websites versus code-driven websites. The third thing is I'm going to relate that to the WOW project and what I'm calling, and I'd like you to call, push-button websites, because literally they are push-button websites. I'm going to give you a WOW demo. You may have played with it before. But I'm going to sit down and I'm going to push a few buttons and create a website for my flotilla as you watch. And I don't use very much time in the presentation for that. I only allow myself 10 minutes to do that part of the presentation. I'm going to talk about a few caveats, restrictions, and limitations, the things you should know about, and then about what you do next if you want to get on the WOW bandwagon. Now, the target audience for WOW is units without an FSOCS or without an SOCS. That's the real target. A unit without a website. Units with neglected websites. All right? And FOs, SCSs, and SOCSs that don't have web experience or HTML programming experience. This is really the target audience for the WOW product. So, before we get into that, let's talk about the reasons to have a unit website at all. I think the number one reason to have a unit website is to attract new members and have a sort of a touchstone for candidates that are interested in your organization. The second is to attract students to your public education events. And that funds us at the end of the day, and it's part of our mission that we want to get out, so we need to attract students. The third, I think, in terms of priority, is to share information among members. I think it's a great tool to share information, but it's not as good as talking to one another, but it still isn't important. And fourth, really nice websites or informative websites are a source of unit pride. And there are many more reasons that you can think about, but I think these are the top 4 or 5 reasons to have websites. However, there are equally compelling reasons to not have a website. First of all, programming is arcane. It's difficult to do well. There's a lot of lousy websites out there because people just don't know how to do the ins and outs of HTML. It's easy to do a bad job, and it's very hard to do a good one. The third thing is, in my opinion, a bad website is worse than no website at all. It makes the unit look bad, it discourages visitors, and it makes the auxiliary look bad. And finally, even worse than a bad website is a neglected website. And what's the difference? A neglected website is one where you log on to, and it says, everybody's invited to be at the flotilla meeting Wednesday night, February 5th, 2005. Okay? That, to me, says these people don't care. And that's that's an image that you don't want to portray. So I would say if you have a website that's neglected, take it down. Take it down. To give you a little anecdote here, Chris, my ADSO, his title is ADSO UW, ADSO for Unit Websites. We have 67 flotillas in my district. Oh, by the way, I'm the DSO CS for District 11 South. We have 67 or 65 flotillas, and Chris's job is to make sure that by the end of this year, every single flotilla has a website that's credible. That's his job. Now, as part of that, we built a database, and we went through and we put together a GAR model for websites, a whole scoring matrix. And we went through and we scored all of our websites. And they scored from high scores down to low scores. But about 30% of them were really junk. I mean, there were sites that we really didn't want to have on the website.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Yes, you may.
What do you do for those sites that aren't on the national server? Because a lot of flotillas are hosting them themselves. You can't say, take it off. But if it hasn't been updated in like 5 years, what have you got?
You put a program together like I've done, and you take an ADSO, and his job is to talk to the flotilla commander. Okay?
All right.
But when we get to the end of the WOW discussion, you'll see that you have an alternative to offer them. Okay? And I'll give you, at the end of this presentation, I'll give you some anecdotes of what's happened in my own district with this. Okay? So, I wanted to give you the website status for the Coast Guard Auxiliary as of January 2011. We have 16 districts, and they all have websites, and they're all pretty good websites. There's 171 divisions, 84% or 143 have websites. There are 28 divisions